Okay, getting started on the suicide doors. Yeah, and the hinges, I've never really done this before, so I'm just kind of going just what kind of seems like common sense here. I watched some YouTube videos and they say that you want to put your windows in first, because if you put your hinges in first and your windows are in the way, you've got to cut your hinges back out because your windows can only go one place. So I've got my windows all done, and these hinges here, these come separate, and I don't know whether they plan on you doing this or not, but I've got this rod here and I've got them clamped to, this is the flattest piece I had to clamp them to, and you just want your rod to spin freely there so your doors are in the same line. Then I'm going to weld this bar in between the two, and that'll keep the hinges perfectly lined up at all times. I'm putting this bar in straight and level so that I can use it to level the hinges when I put them in. Kind of keep checking to make sure once you start welding that it hasn't pulled any. Feels pretty good. Yeah, it still spins freely, so now I can unclamp them for my deal and then I'll weld the bottom side here. Okay, still spins free, so that's all there is to that. And that way, I put this bar in straight, level with everything else. So when I'm putting it in the car, all I gotta do is put the level on this bar, and I know my hinges are lined up. When you put them in your car, to have your door open flat, you've got to have your hinges level with your vehicle level to the ground. So there's that. Okay, here's where my hinges are going to go, right there and right here. I braced this here because I don't want this piece moving at all. And so I've got this one marked out here, and then once I get this one, I'll have to figure this one out after that. So start cutting it out. always thought someone ought to make like these grinding tools so that they spin both directions, because there's always going to be half the time you're doing something like this, you got the spark shooting right in your face. Yeah, if they could make it so it's spun both ways, then you could set it whatever direction you want. That's about the right depth right there. Just a few slight modifications, but that's about it. Okay, I've got this panel made, which will go in here. Once I cut this piece out, it'll weld in there. And then I transferred it over to this 1/8 inch piece of steel here. And you'll notice I didn't cut this with the plasma cutter because I didn't want it to warp it. So I cut it out with this thing here. This is extremely dangerous, but make sure you wear heavy gloves, face mask, and be careful because it kicks. It sliced my pants. It'd be nice if you had wore coveralls, but make sure you wear a heavy coat and whatever. And this thing won't warp it, but it's extremely dangerous. And this thing fits in to my, I'll have to do a little more fitting with it, but it fits in there. When the door closes, it'll go in there, and then I can weld my brackets across the door to bolt the suicide hinges onto. These suicide hinges came with these pieces here to mount your door to, which are like that. They got the slots so that you can adjust them, and then they've got this tab to hold your screw bracket on so it doesn't fall down in your door. But with my doors, those brackets would probably work great with a shell. You know, a door is a whole shell, but basically my door is pretty much a skin. So I put these, built these, just put some squares in these steel, and I'll have to do some bending and get them to mount in here right so that they mount up to my windows and everything also. And that's how I'll have to do this. Okay, I got my hinges in here. When I was, it's so tight inside this cab, I had sucked the hinges up so the point was right up against the back of this bar, and it makes it pretty tight here, but it'll still work. So keep that in mind where your hinge point is. You need to be probably back, if you got the room, you need to be back as far as you can on that. And my door is still flimsy, so I'll run an X brace down to here and then up to here, and then put some corner braces in that, and that should help it out a lot. Well, I've got the the latches and the strikers on. The edge of my cab, the striker ended up being right there on the joint, which is kind of a bitch, so I made a new plate. Here's the plates that they come with. It has that to adjust it with. But what I did is I made a plate. It was pretty tight space, so I had to make this plate. And and then I'll cut this piece off here and weld it in my slot there. I made it out of 1/4-inch steel, but I milled the slot down so it's the same as the thickness of that steel there. And then I welded on the side over there, and this one's for the other side. And then there's what it originally looked like. It was square down there, and I made a new plate that kind of took up the space there and rounded that corner a little bit. And so now I got to finish welding these in. Everything's just tacked right now, but the door closes now pretty good. Once I get the seals in, it should close a lot better. And it looks pretty good on the gaps. The back of the door, I've got a little gap down there, but I've got to replace that sheet metal down there. So it was rolled over too much to begin with. So when I put the new sheet metal on, I'll just roll it out so that it meets up with the body line there. Yeah, as you can see, the bear claw latches are right up against my window channel. You just have to, this wood is my window, so I don't ruin it while I'm making this whole thing. But I was working on the power door locks here, and I got these are 5-wire window locks, and after getting them, I found out that I probably only need the 2-wire. So yeah, all the 2-wire would just be these 2 wires here, be positive one way to lock it, and then positive negative the other way to unlock it. And the other wire, all it does is you hook this black wire up to ground, and then these other 2 wires are just a signal to tell you the door is open or the lock is unlocked or locked, and that's just for your computer. I was going to get a Dakota Digital door lock controller, and I thought maybe it needed it, but turns out they just use a set of relays that just reverses the power lock and unlock, so those won't be needed. But the 2-wire ones are just a couple bucks cheaper. And I built this, as you can see, the door lock there. The door locks, they don't have a D10 or anything, so what I did was I put a lock washer there, and then it's got a lock nut, so I just got it down there so it's not perfectly tight. That way the door thing will open and close without jiggling the other one way or the other. That should last pretty long. And then I built this. This is something that you wouldn't have to do, but since I had to mill and spend the time, I did it. This just goes on the end of your door lock actuator here. If I can get it on there. Yeah, and this mounts on your door lock there, and this extra little hole up here is for the 1032 threaded rod, which will come up here, and then it'll be a hand door lock and unlock. I always something like this, if you have everything electric, sooner or later something will go wrong, and I don't want to be locked in the car or something like that, so it's going to have a hand door unlock and lock. So that is how I took care of that. And there it is, all hooked up. This here, I just welded a bolt together. I don't have any all thread. I'm doing this right in the middle of the coronavirus thing, and kind of don't want to go any more places than I have to, but here's how I can unlock and lock that. This will go up through my trim there just like a normal car, and then the door can be locked that way in case the power or something goes out. So that takes care of that. I was going to go with the hidden door handles, and they're like, I think Kindig makes them, they're like $600. That would have been okay, I guess, but I was looking on on the internet on a YouTube video, somebody putting them in, and apparently there's like a steel flap on those door handles that closes, and that's what seals it to the outside. So like if you were at a car wash or something and you sprayed your door and it got in there, there's a chance it could drip down to the inside the door. And then what would be worse for me is if I was going down the highway and that happened to have a little air leak there, I wouldn't want it whistling all the time. But apparently I've never heard of it before, so I don't know if that's just one guy bitching about it or what. But so I just decided these are like $20, $30 or something like that. So, and I don't need hidden hinges or anything on this thing. So I just got these, they're like $29, $30 open car handles from Speedway Motors. I was trying to figure out how to do my linkage on this thing, and because your door handle has to go down below the window and come back up, because when you do the suicide door, you don't have this space. The factory leaves a space so they can run all the window stuff there. So I had to come up with a linkage, and I was going to make a linkage, but I found the Carolina Customs, I believe it is, makes this linkage kit. And let me get my camera down off here so I could show a little bit more about it. But it's a bell crank and stuff so that to pull your door with, and it goes around the windows and goes up and pulls the door handle. So it works pretty good. Let me run my window up and show you the whole deal. Okay, here's the whole linkage, and it comes down from the handle. This handle is part of the linkage kit. It's this here. Yeah, here's the T handle if you order, or not a T handle, but open car handle, 2930 open car handle from like Speedway Motors is where I got that. And then the kit, this is part of the kit, and it has these adjustable screws so that your deal can just bolt to the back of the handle. And then the handle was kind of long, so I cut it off because it would have hit my window. And then it just, my car just happened to have this piece of steel here that was almost in the perfect right spot, right thickness, that I could just slide this thing up. I just cut a V out of it so that I could get it in there. And then my linkage comes down there, goes around the window, and comes back up there. And it works pretty good too. So now I think I need to put my suicide door safety pin is on, and then I can get on the other door. I've been trying to figure out a better way to do the suicide doors. I don't like the way all the safety latches on the suicide doors. I wasn't really impressed with that much of them. So I got thinking, since I've got air right on this anyway, I'm going to have air all the time. So I'm going to put a little air cylinder that it'll mount into this pillar here. The door will close in here, and this pillar, this air cylinder will mount about right there. And then when I hit the thing, it'll go out and latch. This has threads on it here right now, and I'll cut off, and then it'll just be a pin, and it'll be flush with this part here. And this cylinder here, it's a Automation Direct is where I got it. It's a nitrous cylinder, and there's the part number on it. And when I get it all set up here, I'll have like these little air solenoids here, and then I'll just come from the air thing there, and it'll just, whoops, it'll just latch both doors, and then this will engage them, and I'll have safety switches on there in the doors themselves so that they can tell when these pins are out in the doors and latched. And the locks work like this. You see the extra cylinder hanging down there. The other cylinder is tack welded in there. And that locks it. And then these are all spring loaded, so if it loses air pressure, it unlocks automatically. And so then when you close your door, you got your locks, so your door can't be opened. And Dakota Digital makes a controller for locks that'll cover suicide doors, and it also has it so that you can put a switch in the pin back over here on the back side of the pin, so it can tell it for sure that it's locked. So I'll probably get something like that, and it can be set so that it locks at a certain mile an hour, or you can lock it just when it goes in gear. But I think I'd rather have the certain mile an hour, and I'd like to see that if it make it so that it would unlock under a certain mile an hour too, and that way if you were ever in a wreck, once your wheels got under a certain mile an hour, it would automatically unlock your suicide door locks. So I'll have to work with them on that if it doesn't do that. And that pretty much covers this door for as far as the suicide doors go. So I'll be starting on the other side next.